Say you're running for president to bring a moral and spiritual awakening to the country.
Explain yourself.
Yes.
Explain yourself. And you have no political experience, just like Trump. How do you awaken the American people?
You sound a lot like Trump. This sounds a lot like Trump, just so we're clear. This is his message.
Well,
and
but he was lying.
Let me,
She's not.
Children, you also just came out as the anti-vaxxer candidate. You said,
I did not.
Well, let me finish. You were, you think mandatory vaccines, calling a mandate on them would be, quote, draconian and Orwellian. So what do you say to children and the parents of children who are going through chemotherapy?
Build yourself up by putting other people down. That's, to me, not debate.
It's politics.
Yeah, I think I'm just a little confused.
You've received some criticism for a couple comments that you have walked back and said were misstated, that people would say were maybe anti-science. You came out, you made a comment against antidepressants, you made a comment that many saw as anti-vax. Did you misspeak, or have your opinions on those things evolved? How would you?
No, they've been inaccurately described, as you just did.
A few months after Robin Williams died by suicide, you posted a thing I'm putting on the screen implying that antidepressants were the cause of Williams' death. And you wrote, "The truth about antidepressants, helpful for some, harmful for others." And then you linked to this article that was clearly suggesting antidepressants played a role in his death. Do you know who wrote that article? That was by an organization funded by the Church of Scientology, which doesn't even believe in psychiatry, doesn't believe in any psychiatric medicine, even for very serious mental illness. They even have a museum in Hollywood called Psychiatry and Industry of Death.
Anderson, if somebody is helped by an antidepressant, I'm happy for them. And I have never argued that anybody who is on an antidepressant should get off an antidepressant. And not only that, I've always made it very clear that if anything in my conversation makes people think twice about it, if in fact they are on it, that the last thing they should ever do is throw it away, because getting off them, people must get off them if they get off them very, very carefully. So this idea that I'm some Tom Cruise about antidepressants, I'm not, and I never have been.
But if somebody is depressed and they're reading your tweets or reading your books, they're not hearing you speak in a nuanced way in a seminar.
Have you read my book, Tears to Triumph, about this?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I enjoy your writing, and I find you really fascinating. But it does worry me that everybody to talk with a medical provider and see if this is just a regular sadness and that's understandable, or...
Well, but what I would say, I'm sorry, I believe that a medical professional, talking to someone about their sadness, I believe that someone who is clergy, someone who is a psychotherapist who's not coming from a psychopharmacological perspective, someone who is a spiritual perspective, is just as qualified and expert to talk about issues of deep sadness, even depression. It has only been in the last few years that this idea of the medicalization of depression has come up. Why are we pretending what we all know is not true? We are living in a society now where somebody is going through just a normal breakup, and somebody says, do you think you should be on something? Once again, let's talk about how many times it's the gynecologist. This is not a mental health professional. And how many times people say that the doctor who gave it to them...
You're relying on the Church of Scientology for factual background to your argument, and that's really not... I mean, would you appoint someone from the Church of Scientology to be head of your CDC if you were president?
No, I would not. No, I would not. Also, I have made one glib comment.
Months.
And that's all the more reason why we need more agents.
So you think you should just let them through?
No, I did not say that. Please don't put
Okay,
those
so
words
all
in
right,
my mouth.
I don't want you.
Okay,
what would you do? So all those people come to the border.
We definitely need more agents. We definitely need more ports of entry that are open. We definitely need more technology.
It seemed like you were out of your depth. After the second debates, though, you were the most Googled name in, I think, 49 states. And all of a sudden, people went from Marianne Williamson, the joke, to, maybe she says a few things we like. Maybe she's got a plan. Why do you think you're connecting with so many people who first thought that you were a joke? Well, because that's what you said at one of the debates. You said, this needs help from a higher power. Now, when I heard that, I was like, but you're running for president of the United States. So is that the second highest power? And this is a genuine question. You have come under fire, though, for some of those views and how they've come across. For instance, people have said Marianne Williamson is against vaccines because I think at one point you compared forcing people to get vaccines to Orwellian or draconian ideas. And some people felt like you were saying get off your meds. You don't need them if you are depressed as a person.
No one felt that who read what I said. That's the problem we have today.
People don't read them.
Your politics does spring from this former life you had, or I guess the life you'll continue if you don't win, is based on...
Well, my career for the last 35 years, I have given talks based on this set of books called A Course in Miracles, which has been referred to as a self-study program of spiritual psychotherapy.
That sounds like Scientology.
How can you even say that?
No, it just sounds like it. I'm not saying it is.
No.
I'm just suspicious when
all,
something is based
Scientology-
on one book. That always worries me.
But it is a book that is based on universal spiritual themes. It is not a religion. It does not claim any kind of monopoly on truth.
Wait.
It has no dogma. It has no doctrine. It talks about love and forgiveness. And I think that so many of the people who are students of the Course in Miracles come from all religions and even no religions, people like you.
But I read that the author... Come on, don't become a politician now.
It happens.
Don't become a politician. All right, and I read this. This is how the New York Times characterized your basic views. And, of course, it's presented as kind of a like, what? What's this crazy lady saying? I agree with everything. Mrs. Williamson, it says, has criticized the widespread use of antidepressants. I'm down with that. They aren't too much. Okay. Suggested that they were to blame for some celebrities' suicides. We don't know. But I thought the same thing. Characterized treatment guidelines for postpartum depression as a way for pharmaceutical companies to make more money. I don't know a lot about that, but I know pharmaceutical companies are not above doing anything. And called the distinction between ordinary sadness and clinical depression artificial. I think that's a bit of a mischaracterization. But you do say that, yes, we prescribe these drugs, and sadness is a part of life. You don't always need a pill for sadness. Isn't that your basic thrust?
Well, absolutely. There is...
Your background, you've done a lot of work in AIDS and HIV work.
Yes, I did.
And when we started this forum, we got a lot of questions, or my mic is messed up. We got a lot of tweets with people asking about your book, Return to Love. And they were pointing out quotes where you wrote, "We are not punished for our sins, but by our sins. Sickness is not a sign of God's judgment on us, but of our judgment on ourselves." And many have believed that you've suggested that positive thought could help people get through HIV/AIDS diagnosis.
Many people believe that I was saying what?
That you've thought positive thinking could help someone with an HIV diagnosis. So first, I'd love to get your thoughts on these quotes and how your mind and your thinking has changed over the years. And also, I'd love to hear how you plan to end the HIV epidemic.
Well, first of all, my thoughts haven't changed over the years because there's nothing in what you just read that was anything to indicate anything such that if somebody had had positive thoughts, they wouldn't have gotten AIDS. I never said anything like that. There's nothing in my books like that. There's nothing in my experience, and there are many, many people on my website, Marianne 2020, in response to these really vicious smears, I must say. There is a video of some people who were there at the time. My sister had breast cancer. If anyone had suggested that there was some lack of love involved or that her thinking would fix it, that is so anathema to not only anything I've ever believed, but also anything I've ever said. This is what I believed. I believed that with love for each other, we could get through it. And with my behavior, I demonstrated that. I also would like to point out, at the beginning of that epidemic, and for years into it, there was no medicine. There was no medicine. So what?
I was always more skeptical of Marianne Williamson. She has the yoga mom, healing crystals vibe, and I just always felt like it was incredibly gimmicky, and I didn't trust her because we know it won't have any effect. We know that this nonsense, like the power of the mind, yes, that's, absolute trash. That's like hippie, mystical thinking, energy, crystals, chakras, nonsense. So I have a really low threshold for this stuff because we've seen it in politics in various forms. Whether it's, a theocracy like Saudi Arabia, whether it's the evangelical religious right in the U.S. and how they're trying to take their religion and, force it into politics in this country. We don't need the goofy left-wing, energy equivalent of that. We don't need that because it's not true and it's wrong and it's silly. So there are actually people out there who think Marianne Williamson did a good job. I think she dropped acid one too many times in her life. No offense to the people who do acid.
Marianne Williamson is running for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination. She has no chance. I mean, she's polling so low that she's not even in the top 20 candidates in recent polling summaries. Now, she's a little bit wacky. She has a long history of being a sort of new age self-help guru.
We need to say it like it is. It's bigger than Flint. It's all over this country. It's particularly people of color. It's particularly people who do not have the money to fight back. And if the Democrats don't start saying it, then why would those people feel that they're there for us? And if those people don't feel it, they won't vote for us, and Donald Trump will win.
Listen, she seems to always be on the edge of claiming that we will solve our problems by holding crystals. But she was actually quite strong yesterday in her presentation. She's polling 0.3%. I don't know what it's going to do for her, but she at least put in a good performance. And there was this just general deficit of a format that really allows deep conversation. And in playing the game, Marianne Williamson did well for herself. That being said, she's wacky, and people get mad at me for saying this.
Well, you're a famous business person, besides being a spiritual leader. We've got no political experience. We have someone who is a businessman with no political experience in office now. That makes someone who is from what we'd think of as kind of the normative political track that we've seen in American history very appealing. That might be one of the reasons why Joe Biden is so appealing, is people go like, oh, just go back before things got crazy.
Okay, let's get into the knocks against you that have been out there about you being an anti-vaxxer, anti-medications, and particularly there are people in the LGBTQ community, particularly those who lived through the AIDS crisis, who have major problems with you and what you said to the community at the time, such as if you're super positive, meaning if you have a positive outlook, you can beat the disease. There are allegations that you told people with AIDS to stop taking their medications. Please address that.
Well, first of all, as a general view about medicine, I'm Jewish. I go to the doctor. There is not one thing I've ever said, and there is not one thing I've ever written that is anti-medicine or anti-science. There might even be people in this room, I don't know. I founded an organization here in New York City called the New York Center for Living.
Let me have you address this one thing that I saw in this Slate article where it's written, one HIV-positive man wrote on Facebook that Williamson had harmed people with AIDS by, quote, conning them into, quote, believing they deserve their biological condition and even their deaths because they weren't spiritually fit enough to visualize the AIDS virus away.
Nothing I ever said, nothing ever did. I'd like, actually, if they want to turn, this is in New York. New Yorkers knew me during that time. And if somebody would like to turn the lights on here, I think there are probably people in this room who know. That is, anybody can say anything. Mm-hmm. That is the most malicious and vicious. You know, my sister died of breast cancer. If anybody had said that about her, I would have throttled them.
And to the person who was booing, I'm asking the question because there have been stories written and no reaction from Ms. Williamson, and this is her
there has been so
opportunity.
Much
over and over and over again. You are
Before, I'm not attacking. I'm asking a question.
Well, no, there has been so much reaction. There has been so much reaction. That's why I said the lights be turned on, because in the very lovely, very beautiful I think Scott Friedman is his name, Phyllis Weiner. There are a couple of people who were here in that community in New York who are on that video talking about their actual experience. That's not someone who knows my work. That's not someone who was there. That's not someone who's read my books or heard my lectures. You know, it's interesting when you're on tape, thousands of lectures, those things, this just, you know, when did I stop beating my husband or my child? It's just not even anything close to anything I've ever said or felt or believed.
Well, I'm glad to have given you the opportunity to answer these questions on a larger platform, because not everyone is paying attention like everyone here in the audience.
Thank you.